Okay, so today we're going to finish up the rest of the review problems for the final exam. So we're doing problems 45 through 60. So for number 45 and 46, they say find the mean, median, mode, and Q3 for the given data. We'll start just by listing the numbers we have here. So 68, 65, 68, 45, 47, 65, 65, and 49. So the first thing we want to do is uh, order these or rearrange the numbers from smallest to largest. So let me count this. Okay, that's my first number, second number, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth. So we have a total of 8 numbers. Okay, my smallest number is 45. Okay, my next is, okay, then 47, then 49, I got 68, 65, 68, 65. Okay, I got a bunch of 65s. So 65, and then cross through it, 65, cross through it, 65, cross through it, then 68. Okay. And again, let's number each number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, I'm missing something. Oh, and I had another 68. Okay, 68 here. Okay, so we rearranged all the numbers from smallest to largest. Okay, the mean, this means the average. So that means we want to add up all the numbers and divide by the number of numbers. So for my numerator, I'm gonna have 45 plus 47 plus 49 plus 65 plus 65 plus 65 plus 68 plus 68. And make sure I have 8 numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So to find the average, we add those up and divide by the number of numbers, which is 8. Now get your calculator and let's add 45 plus 47 plus 49 plus 65 plus 65 plus 65 plus 68 plus 68. And that equals 472. Okay, divided by 8, which gives us 59. Okay, so the mean or the average of the numbers is 59. That is the mean. Now for the median, the median is the number that's in the middle. So the number in the middle of in this case, of all 8 numbers. Okay, I'm going to rewrite the numbers again. 45, 47, 49, 65, 65, 65, 68, and 68. And since we had 8 numbers, to find the number that's in the middle, let's take this number 8 divided by 2, which will give us 4. So the fourth number is 1, 2, 3, 4. And let me just number the rest of them. 5, 6, 7, 8. So my fourth number is here. So what we want to do is we want to look to the left of what I just circled to see how many numbers we have. 1, 2, 3. And now look to the right, see how many numbers we have. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now for this to be the median, I have to have the same number of numbers to the left of this and to the right. So what I have to do in this case is I'm going to have to add the fourth and the fifth number and get their average. And that's going to be the median. So let's just calculate that first. Okay, so I'm adding the fourth number, which is 65, plus the fifth number, which is 65, and then divide by 2. When I do this, I get 130 over 2, and that equals 65. So if I can squeeze this number in between 4 and 5, so this 65 is the median because it's the number that's in the middle, so that to the left of this, I'm going to have 4 numbers, and to the right of it, I'm going to have 4 numbers. Want to stop there. Imani, any questions about that?
No, sir.
Okay. So we found the mean, which is the average, the median, which is the number in the middle. Let me add one thing to this because for this set of data, we had 8 numbers, which is an even number. But suppose it had been an odd number of data. The median would have been easier to find. So suppose we had the numbers 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Okay, so this is 5 numbers. And let's number each number. First number, second number, third number, fourth number, fifth number. Now, if I were asked to find the median of this or the middle number, I would take the total number, which is 5, divide that by 2. This would give me 2.5, and I would round up to make this 3. So that means my third number, 1, 2, 3. This is going to be my median because to the left of the circled number, I have 2 numbers, 1, 2. And to the right of it, I have 2 numbers, 1, 2. So I wanted to just include a different example of how to find the median if you had an odd number of numbers because up here I had an even number of numbers. Sorry about that. Okay, so back to our original problem. We found the mean, we found the median. Now for the mode. Scroll down. And the mode is the number that appears the most. So mode is number that appears the most. Okay, so for the mode, it's the number that appears the most. Okay, so, and just rewriting the numbers again. 45, 47, 49, got 65 3 times, and I have 68 twice. Well, since 65 appears 3 times, then it is the mode. So mode equals 65. Okay. Now to find this number called Q3, which just means I need to find the middle of the data I just put a rectangle around. So tell you what, let me erase some of this. So Q3 is the middle number of all data to the right of the median. So Q3 is the middle of all data to the right of the median. And this median is the median from the original set of data. So that means I only want to look at these numbers here. So I'm going to draw an arrow and write down 65, 65, 68, and 68. So I need to find the middle of this data. Okay, well, I've got 4 numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4. If I divide this 4 by 2, this will put me at this 65, but to the left of this, I only have 1 number, and to the right of it, I have 2 numbers, so it can't be the median. So that means I'm going to have to use the second and third number, take their average, and that's going to be my Q3. So 65, Q3 is going to equal 65 plus 68 divided by 2. 65 plus 68 equals 133 divided by 2. 66.5. So the middle of these 4 numbers is 66.5. And this makes sense because to the left of this number, I have 1, 2 numbers, and to the right of this number, I have 2 numbers. So Q3 equals 66.5. And we have one more problem like this to go through where we have to find mean, median, mode in Q3. But before I do that, I got to ask any questions about this, Natalia or Imani?
No, sir. No, sir.
That was number 45. Okay, number 46. We have the numbers 12, 13, 12, 13, 25, and 26. So first, rearrange these from smallest to largest. That's always your first step. Okay, so I have 12, cross through it, 12, 13, 13, 25, and 26. Now let's number each number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, to find the mean, we're going to take the average. So we're going to add up each number and divide by the number of numbers, which is 6. 12 plus 12 plus 13 plus 13 plus 25 plus 26 divided by 6 equals, calculator, 12 plus 12 plus 13 plus 13 plus 25 plus 26 gives us 101 divided by 6. 16.833, which is not the answer. As I look at the answer key, they've got 16.286. I have no idea how they got that. This is like my 4th time working this. So their answer is not right. So the answer is, for the mean, 16.833. Okay, for the median, you need to find the number in the middle. Well, we've got 6 numbers, so 6 divided by 2 equals 3, which means my third number should be the one in the middle, but it's not going to be, because if I look to the left, I only have 2 numbers. If I look to the right, I have 3. So that means I need to look at the third and the fourth number, take their average, and then that number is going to be the median. So 13, this is the third number, plus 13, which is the fourth number, okay, divided by 2. This equals 26 divided by 2, which equals 13. So let me rewrite this data set, and I want to include my median. So we have 12, 12, the first number, the second number, the third number. Now I'm going to insert the median. Then we have the fourth number, and then fifth, and then the sixth number. 46. Yep, the median is 13. So here is the median, MEDIAN. And to the left of the median, I have 3 numbers. And to the right of it, I have 3 numbers. So mean, median for the mode. That's the number that appears the most. How many 12s? 1, 2. So I have 2 number 12s, but I have 3 13s. 1, 2, 3. So for 46, the mode is 13. And now for Q3, I want to look at all the numbers to the right of my median. So it's all these numbers. Which is 13, 25, and 26. I have 3 numbers. So my number in the middle of these is going to be 25. Because to the left of that number, I just have 1 number. To the right of it, I have 1 number. So Q3 equals 25. And before I go forward, I'm gonna ask one more time, just because this is new. But Imani or Natalia, any questions?
No, no, sir.
Okay, good, good, good. All right. So on to number 47. It says solve and write your solution in interval notation. They give us 7 minus 2 times x minus 4 is less than 5 minus 10x. So first, let's just solve this thing for x. Got to get x on one side by itself. So this will give me, bring down 7. Negative 2 times x is negative 2x. Negative 2 times negative 4 gives me a positive 8 is less than 5 minus 10x. We can combine the 7 and the 8, which will give us 15 minus 2x is less than 5 minus 10x. Next, let's add 10x to both sides. And this gives us 15 plus 8x is less than 5. Now let's subtract 15 from both sides. So we get 8x is less than, okay, 5 minus 15 is a negative 10. Now let's divide both sides by 8. And since I'm dividing by a positive number, the inequality sign stays in the same direction. So 8 divided by 8 is going to be, when they cancel each other, it gives me x is less than, and negative 10 over 8. Change that to a mixed number. So it's going to be a negative, okay, 10 divided by 8. 1 times 8 is 8. 10 minus 8 is 2. So this gives me as a mixed number 1 and 2/8, which I can simplify it down to 1 and 1 over 4. So my x is going to be less than negative 1 and 1/4. So now let's take this and draw it on a number line. Here's 0, 1, 2, -1, -2. So -1 and 1/4. Okay, well, here's -1. Let's see, here's -1 and 1/4. And I need all the x's that are less than. So that means I'm going to be going to the left. So I'm going to have a parenthesis, and I'm going to the left. And I have the parenthesis because I have just less than for the inequality. So now to write this in interval notation, going from my smallest value, well, this is going on and to the left to negative infinity. So it's going to be from negative infinity, comma, and then all the way up to this point, which was -1 and 1/4. And we can just rewrite this so that it's negative infinity, comma, negative, and we can change this mixed number to an improper fraction. 4 times 1 is 4 plus 1 is 5, and my denominator is still 4. Okay. So here is the solution, and write this down here. Negative infinity, comma, to -5/4 is the interval notation. Imani, Natalia, any questions?
No,
Okay.
no, sir. Very good.
Okay. All right, so that was number 47. Okay, number 48, find f when x equals -3, 4, and they give us the function. Okay, so find f of -3, just means when x equals -3. For this function, f of x equals 2 times x squared minus 4 times x plus 5. So when x equals -3, we're going to plug in -3. So 2 times -3 squared minus 4 times x, which is -3, plus 5. Now let's simplify. This gives me 2 times -3 squared, -3 times -3 gives me a positive 9. -4 times -3 gives me a positive 12, and plus 5. So 2 times 9 is 18, plus 12 plus 5 is 17, and 18 plus 17 equals to 35. For problems 49 and 50, find the greatest common factor. So we have 2x to the third plus 4x minus 8. So find greatest common factor. Let's start first with the numbers. We have 2, 4, and 8. So their greatest common factor is 2. So I can factor out a 2. I'm going to have my parentheses. See, we have an x to the third here, an x here, but this term doesn't have an x. So I cannot factor out any x. The only thing I can factor out is a 2. So that's going to leave me with, okay, 2 times what gives me 2x to the third, which is x to the third. Okay, plus 2 times what gives me 4x, 2x. And now 2 times what gives me a -8, a -4. And that's all that can be factored, so we stop here. So we wound up with 2 times x to the third plus 2x minus 4. Number 50, we have 3x to the fourth minus 9x squared plus 27x. And again, find the greatest common factor. I have the numbers 3, 9, and 27. Their greatest common factor is 3. So I can bring a 3 on the outside. Now, in terms of the variable, I have x to the fourth, x squared, and then x. So all of them have at least one x. So let's factor out just one x. Let me also write it this way. X to the fourth means x times x times x times x. X squared means x times x. And then x is, well, that's just x. So I look and I circle, what do they have in common? Just one x. And that's the one x that I pulled outside of the parentheses. So what does this leave me with on the inside? Well, 3x times what will give me 3x to the fourth? Well, it's just x to the third. Okay. 3x times what gives me negative 9x squared, negative 3x. And now 3x times what gives me 27x. It's going to be a positive 9. And this can't be factored anymore. So for 50, we wind up with 3x times x to the third minus 3x plus 9. So that means our greatest common factor was 3x. And then for 49, let me go back up and circle. The greatest common factor was 2. GCF is 2. Greatest common factor is 3x. '51. Factor completely. So you have x to the third minus 5x squared plus 4x minus 20. Let's put parentheses here and here, here and here. So now what we want to do is factor out what they have in common. Well, they both have at least x squared. So let's factor out an x squared. And this is going to leave me x squared times what gives me x to the third? Well, that's just x. Then x squared times what gives me negative 5x squared, which is negative 5. close parenthesis, plus. Now let's factor out what we have in common here for 4x minus 20. Looking at 4, looking at 20, their greatest common factor is 4. And then 4 times what gives me 4x, just x. And minus 4 times what gives me negative 20, negative 5. But now here we have a common factor of x minus 5 and x minus 5. So let's factor that out. So let's pull out an x minus 5. And I'm using a square bracket just instead of parentheses at first to show you that we're pulling out the common factor of x minus 5. So now we can say x minus 5 times what gives me x squared times x minus 5? It's just x squared. And then plus x minus 5 times what gives me 4 times x minus 5? Well, that's just 4. So now we're going to rewrite this and change these square brackets back to parentheses. So x minus 5 times parentheses x squared plus 4. Which is the same as x squared plus 4 times x minus 5. Because we are multiplying, so we can't change the order because 2 times 3 is the same as 3 times 2. So we can change the order here. That's it for 51. (52) 2x to the third minus 4x squared minus 6x plus 12. I'm going to rewrite this as, put in parentheses, 2x to the third minus 4x squared, then plus negative 6x plus 12. So essentially, I just put parentheses here and here, here and here, put a plus sign in between. And now we're going to factor out what we can from each of these. Okay, so starting here, I have 2 and 4, whose greatest common factor is 2. Now I have x to the third and x squared, well, they both have at least an x squared. So now 2x squared times what gives me 2x to the third? Well, that's just x. And 2x squared times what gives me negative 4x squared? That's just negative 2. Let's factor this negative 6x plus 12. They have at least negative 6 in common. So pull out a negative 6. Yep. So negative 6 times what gives me negative 6x? Well, that's just x. And now negative 6 times what gives me a positive 12? That's a negative 2. And so now they have a common factor of x minus 2. So let's pull that on the outside. So x minus 2 times what gives me 2x to the second? Well, it's just 2x squared. X minus 2 times what gives me negative 6? X minus 2? Well, it's just negative 6. And now let's rewrite this as x minus 2 and changing the square brackets back to parentheses gives me 2x squared minus 6. Since this is multiplication, I can rewrite this as 2x squared minus 6 times x minus 2. But now I see I have a common factor here of 2 between the 2 and the 6. So let's pull out 2, and that's going to leave me x squared minus 3, and I bring down the x minus 2. Yep, so from the step from here to here, I just rewrote this because I can change the order of multiplication. And from this step to this step, I saw that the 2x squared minus 6 had a common factor of 2. So I'll pull the 2 on the outside, which leaves me with x squared minus 3. And then the x minus 2 I just brought down. So I'll end up with this as my final answer. That's factored completely. 2 times x squared minus 3 times x minus 2. Okay, for number 53, it says from the graph, let's identify the domain and the range in interval notation. We talk about the domain, we're talking about the x-axis from left to right. Here's my x-axis, here's the y-axis. And my range, I'm talking about the y-axis from bottom to the top. Okay, so for my domain, starting with the origin, and I'm going to start going to the left because I want to see what's the biggest, actually the smallest number. If I start going to the left, my numbers continue to get negative. And notice that on my graph, the tip of it indicates an arrow, which means this thing is going on and on and on and on and on forever. So as I go more negative on the x-axis, I'm going to continue going down until I get close to negative infinity. So for my domain, I'm going to start with from negative infinity and comma, okay? Now going back to the origin, now I'm going to the right on the x-axis, and I want to find the biggest x value. Well, if I stop here, and if I go up, this point has the coordinates of x equals 2, y equals 2. Well, that means that when I'm going back to the origin, going to the right, my biggest x value is going to be 2. 2. So my domain is from open bracket, open parenthesis, negative infinity, comma, 2. And since this point is shaded in, I'm going to have a square bracket. So my domain is from negative infinity up to 2. Negative infinity with the open parentheses and 2 with the square bracket. Now for the range, we want to look at the y-axis from the bottom to the top. So at the bottom of the y-axis, okay, this graph is still going on and on and on, all the way down to eventually negative infinity. So Negative infinity is going to be the lowest I can get on this graph. Now the highest I can get is here. The graph goes no higher than this. So I'll put a point here and then go to the right to the y-axis and see this is at the number 4. 4. And it's going to be a square bracket. Which means that point is included on that graph. So my domain is here, my range is here. Number 54 says write the given numbers from least to greatest. They give us -1/7, 2.59, and then 6.2%, which is -1/7, 2.59, and change this percent to a decimal. So move this 1, 2. It's going to be 0.62. Okay, so from least to greatest. Well, I've got a negative number, so that's going to be my smallest number. Let's list that one first, -1/7, and then cross through it so we know we're done with it. Okay, I'm left with 2.59 and 0.062. Well, this is the next largest number. Okay, then 2.5, and then 9. So that's the order from least to greatest for number 54. Number 55, if a bag of balloons consists of 7 white balloons, 5 yellow, and 10 black, what is the probability that a balloon chosen randomly from the bag will be a black balloon? All right, so probability of black balloon. Well, that's going to equal, I'm going to have a fraction. My denominator is the sum of 7 white balloons plus 5 plus 10. So that equals 22. So this is total number of balloons. And my numerator is going to be the number of black balloons. Okay, so this is going to equal, it told me I had 10 black balloons over a total of 22. And so let's now reduce this fraction. 10 and 22 have a common factor of 2. So this will leave me with 10 divided by 2 is 5, and 22 divided by 2 is 11. So the probability of picking a black balloon is 5 over 11. A 56, 57, 58, 59 is simplifying problems. So 56, we have -3 fourths minus 1/14 plus 6/7. And we have to have the same denominator for each of these fractions before we can simplify them. So we need to find a common denominator for these. Several ways to do it. I'm going to choose, okay, the number 14 is the biggest number. So I'm going to begin to write multiples of 14. So 14 times 1 is 14. And now I ask myself, does 4 times some number give me 14? No. Okay, so I have got to keep going. I got to try another multiple of 14. I didn't try 7 because if 14 didn't go into it, even though 7 does, that's good, but we need all 3 numbers to go into the multiple evenly. Okay, so 14 times 2 is 28. 4 times, does 4 go evenly into 28? Yeah, it goes 7 times. 14 goes evenly into 28? Yeah, twice. And 7 goes into 28 4 times. So I'm gonna need to rewrite all 3 functions so that each of them has a denominator equals to 28. So let's start with -3/4 and say this fraction times some fraction has to equal a fraction whose denominator is 28. So now 4 times what gives me 28? 7. 7 in the denominator, 7 in my numerator. Now -3 times -7 gives me a -21. And I'll circle these for right now. Okay, let's change -1/14 so that it will be some fraction whose denominator is 28. 14 times what gives me 28? 2. 2 in the denominator, 2 in the numerator. -1 times 2 is -2. Circle these equivalent fractions. And now six over 7 times some fraction has to equal some fraction whose denominator is 28. I'm going to have 4 and 4, and 6 times 4 is 24. So now we can rewrite this problem, but instead of using -3/4, I can use -21/28. Because this fraction and this fraction, they're equivalent fractions. And instead of using -1/14, I can use -2/28. And then instead of 6/7, I can use 24/28. Now we've got all 3 fractions, same denominator. So now we can simplify this. I can write this as one fraction. 28 is my denominator. For my numerator, -21 minus 2 plus 24. This equals, okay, -21 plus a -2 gives me a -23. Then bring down the plus 24. My denominator is still 28, and -23 plus 24 gives me 1. So for 56, I end up with 1/28. '57 F6/12 plus 7/18. Okay, I'm going to pick the number 18 and write down multiples. But 18 times 1 is 18, but 12 doesn't go into 18 evenly. Try the next multiple. 18 times 2 gives me 36. Okay, well, 12 times 3 will give me 36. Okay, so I'm going to let 36 be my new denominator. So we need to change 6 over 12 so that it's a fraction whose denominator is 36. I'm going to have 3 and 3, and then 6 times 3 is 18. So those two fractions are equivalent. And then 7 over 18 times something has to be a fraction whose denominator is 36. 2 and 2, 7 times 2 is 14. So now instead of 6 over 12, we can use 18 over 36. And plus 7 over 18, we can use 14 over 36. Okay, so 18 plus 14 is 32 over 36. Let's see, common factors, well, at least 4. So let's divide numerator and denominator by 4. 32 divided by 4 is 8, and 36 divided by 4 is 9. And this can't be simplified, so we stop with 8/9. Okay, 58, we're multiplying two fractions. So 2 over 7 times 3 over 6. This is multiplied numerator times numerator. 2 times 3 gives me 6, and 7 times 6 gives me 42. Now 6 and 42 have a greatest common factor of 6. So let's divide by 6 over 6. 6 divided by 6 is 1. 42 divided by 6 is 7. Okay, 59. 5/8 divided by 3/7. We change this to multiplication by leaving the first fraction the same, 5/8, but then changing division to multiplication, and then taking the reciprocal of 3/7, which is 7/3, and then multiply. 5 times 7 is 35, over 8 times 3, which is 24. Yeah, and that fraction can't be simplified because their greatest common factor is 1. So we have 35 over 24. Okay, last one, number 60. From the graph, identify the domain and range in interval notation. I love these kind of graphs. So these are some of the easiest ones because we have a line that extends infinitely in both directions. So for the domain, I look at the x-axis. Well, my smallest x value, if I keep going to the left on the x-axis, this graph keeps going all the way to negative infinity. So domain, negative infinity, comma. If I start at my origin and go to the right in the positive x direction, as I continue going, since this is an arrow, this continues going all the way to infinity. So my domain is from negative infinity to positive infinity. And now for the range, we look at the y-axis from bottom to top. Well, since this graph is continuing on in this direction, I start at my origin and go down on my y-axis. As I go down here, this graph is going to continue going down to negative infinity. So negative infinity. I turn around and go back up. Okay, I start going in the positive y direction. Well, the graph is still going on and on and on to positive infinity. So for 60, my domain and range are both from negative infinity to positive infinity. And the key to that was looking at the graph and seeing we have the arrow tip on one end and also on the other end. So Imani, that is it for today. Do you have any questions about anything today?
No, sir. Thank you.
All right. And final exam is next Wednesday. And you can choose a time that's good for you. I know it said, 11 to 1, but that doesn't have to be your time. The
Okay.
test, it'll be available at 12 a.m. next Wednesday. And you have until 11:59 next Wednesday to get it done. Just make sure you pick a time that works well for you so that you can get everything done within, you can do everything once you get started.
Okay. I do have one question. Do you have a recommendation for a next math class I should take?
Ooh, okay, hold on for a second. Let me stop recording.